CBR TV. I'm Jonah Weiland in our Tiki Room at WonderCon in Los Angeles. Sitting to my right is director David F. Sandberg. Did I get that right? I sure did.
Yes.
Not that your name's that hard to
Yeah, but there's another David Sandberg, which is the source of a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
But he's the Kung Fury guy, and I'm the Lights Out guy.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you're kind of new to Hollywood and all this. They just released the trailer about an hour ago.
Yeah.
And you've got this movie Lights Out, and I think you got to start at the beginning because it's based on a short. Now, I watched that short this morning. I'm sitting there in front of the computer like this with my hands up because I know there's going to be that shock moment, and I took my hands down right when there was that shock moment. You fucked me up this morning, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and the thing is, we didn't go overboard with like a loud sting or anything because it's scary enough to just have that face there.
So talk about the journey you've taken with Lights Out, because from what I understand, you had a hard time getting money just to make your little short, yet here you are making a feature film version of this. Talk about this journey.
I mean, it's every filmmaker's dream, really. Like, because the thing is, in Sweden, we were trying to make like genre films, like the horror shorts and stuff like that. And one of the production centers over there even told me that, that they didn't want to give me money because I was too inexperienced to even make a short film. And then we make this 2.5-minute short for no money at all, put it on YouTube, and it just blew up. And Hollywood contacts us and like, hey, here's millions of dollars to make a feature out of it.
Right.
So I mean, it's just been insane. And we had no, we didn't think this would happen at all. Yeah.
When you were making the short, what was your ultimate goal with that? And you talked about how like you didn't have a big sting when you have that scary moment, because it's a different kind of thing. Talk about your goals with that, and then how much of that and that sensibility is going to be found in the film.
Yeah, I mean, for the short, we really wanted to do, to have sort of a sting at the beginning, when she moves closer, and then sort of just use the suspense as much as possible. So there's really only two. There's that sting in the beginning, and then there's the face in the end. And between that, it's just tension, 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 which we try to do as much as possible. And try to keep that in the film as well, to really use that sort of suspension and not have, the sort of cheap jump scares that you have in some movies where it's just quiet, nothing happens, looks normal, and then bam, something out of nowhere, so that was a big goal.
It's a little 2.5-minute, not even that long, short.
Yeah.
Making it into a feature film. Sometimes when these things happen, when they translate, I've heard stories in the past, it loses something along the way. But having seen the trailer for Lights Out now, it doesn't seem like it did. But how much of that story that's in the film was something you guys were thinking about when you made the short?
When we made the short, it was just for a short.
It was just that. You didn't have any other backstory.
We made it for an online contest, make an under 3-minute horror short.
Right.
So it was just trying to do the scariest short we could. And then when Hollywood wanted to make a feature out of it, we had to start thinking, okay, what would the feature be? But we found that, luckily, since the short doesn't have much of a story, it's just a concept, really. So as long as we kept that concept, we could play around and do pretty much whatever.
Right.
So it wasn't that like we were tied down by a big story in the short. We could do anything as long as we have that creature that disappears when you turn the lights on.
Look, please forgive me because I'm not the biggest horror fan in the world. I'm certainly aware of what's going on out there, but if I understand correctly, there's like kind of a Nordic horror scene out there, is there not?
I'm not sure. Like in Sweden has had some sort of genre stuff that's been based on books that's been successful, like, Let the Right One In, and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is sort of genre-ish. But I don't know, like it's not, living in Sweden, or when we did that, it didn't feel like there was that much horror stuff going on, really.
No?
It's more of the sort of Bergman legacy of, very depressing movies,
So you're hoping to start a new legacy of scaring the crap out of people?
Absolutely.
and talk about your own history with horror as a fan, as a consumer. When did that start? What were some of those seminal moments for you as you grew up?
I've always just been a horror fan, but I grew up with Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Chucky and all of that sort of 80s horror.
Right.
Some of my tastes have sort of changed, but some of that some of the really great films have sort of stuck with me from then, like Alien and Aliens and Terminator and stuff like that, and The Thing. I really love that sort of horror sci-fi-ish stuff, so that's that's where I want to go eventually. You know.
Yeah, that was my next question. What is it that you want to do next? Do you want to stay within horror and those, I don't want to say confines because that sounds negative, but that's a very strict focus, or do you really want to branch out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the horror doesn't have to be sort of this little box. It's just that a lot of movies tend to be within that little box. I think you can do a lot of creative things within horror. But yeah, I definitely want to explore sci-fi elements as well.
I mean, you just talked about it, Alien and Aliens. Alien is truly a horror film.
Yeah.
I think it kind of became a sci-fi film over the years, but it really is more of a horror film. Aliens is a bit more of a bigger action film with horror aspects of it.
Absolutely.
Is that the scale you want to get to, or do you like this idea of doing these smaller films?
No, I'd love to do that as well, because some of the most fun we had making the feature was, towards the end it gets a little bit actiony, and that stuff was so fun to do. To have a little bit of stunty stuff, and yeah.
All right, I got to ask you the cliched question. It's the first time I've ever interviewed or met you. So, what scares you? Is it lights out? Are you afraid of the dark?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I have this sort of weird thing where I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm not completely awake, and I will hallucinate all these weird things. And my wife Lotta, who's in the short end of the film, she'll have to sort of calm me down, like tell me that you're only dreaming, David. So wow. I mean, that's the terrifying stuff for me. So I guess it basically has to do with sort of losing your mind, because your mind is it's everything. So if you lose that, anything can become real.
I like that. And what do you think you bring to the horror world, to filmmaking, being someone from Sweden that maybe someone that grew up in America doesn't bring to this work?
I don't know, because I've always I've grown up on American films. Like that's all I've watched pretty much, and tried to emulate, which is why I'm trying to sound American when I talk, trying to get rid of my Swedish accent. So I mean, I've always been a fan of American media, so it's just...
You want to play in our sandbox.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't blame you at all. And based on the early buzz, and they're talking about this being a franchise, a series of films, good luck to you, because this looks pretty damn good and
thanks, man.
Pretty damn scary.
Thank you.
David, pleasure to meet you. He's
Pleasure
David
meeting you.
F. Sandberg. I'm Jonah Weiland, and this is CBR TV.